talking about those free agent signings that I alluded to earlier, the big news coming out of last week, Meltzer said that they weren't, WWE at that point, and take this for what it's worth, they weren't like concerned or really thinking about Jay White potentially coming in because they had their eyes on a potential bigger free agent. And it came out soon after that free agent's name was Kenny Omega. Current AEW World Trios Champion, current IWGP United States Heavyweight Champion, one of the biggest stars in AEW. His contract is either up like now or very soon. I know the word was that they could have added or will add time due to the injury that, the time that he missed due to injury, which is, very possible. So, and he was gone for like close to a year, so he may not be back. I mean, he's also been working behind the scenes, though, with the video game stuff, so I'm not really sure if that factors in. I mean, I'm not sure if he would be free at the end of the year, early next year, whatever. But reportedly, WWE has strong interest in signing Kenny Omega, and honestly, I've said this a lot over the last couple of days, I don't think it's far-fetched that he would go to WWE. And at this point, we've talked about it. Never say never. With the Cody stuff, I was like, it's possible, but he'll never go there. Why would he go? Why would he leave this, position of power, and his family's there, and, his mom works, they have his own reality show, and he fucking left and went to WWE. That happened, and I've said other things like, oh, this will definitely happen, and then it doesn't happen. So, honestly, probably just go with the opposite of what I'm saying. I think Kenny will stay in AEW, but I don't think it's that much of a stretch, Mr. Marceau, that he could end up in WWE, and I'm not even saying I'd be opposed to that much either.
No, I'm not totally against it. I'm not totally for it. I think I'm kind of in the middle at this point. I think at this point he's done everything in AEW that he can do. I don't know how much more there really is for him to do. So, I think coming to WWE is nice. I don't know. I just don't really know exactly where he shake out. Is he going right for the belt, or where would he kind of position him? I feel like he kind of maybe in the more Cody position, but I'm not against it, but I'm not overly for it. So I'm kind of in the middle on Omega coming in or not.
The big thing with Omega for me coming into WWE is this. I think him staying in AEW is fine because he's like the staple of that company. The company is named after the group that helped form it, that being the Elite. I think him going to WWE, I wouldn't mind. I'm not even saying, I do want to see him there, but I wouldn't mind seeing him in AEW. I'm not trying to pick sides here. I just think it would be interesting because he's 39 now. If he doesn't go now, he'll never go. And that's fine. Some people never go and whatever. It doesn't, have to go to WWE. AEW is a pretty big company. I know he's always wanted the match with Styles, but that was years ago. And, AJ really isn't anyone of importance currently in WWE based on how he's booked. I don't know. Just the thing with Omega is that I just feel like if he were to go to WWE, it would be refreshing. Because we talk a lot about in AEW, especially lately, this trio stuff with him and the Elite. I'm more kind of the matches than you are. It's more of a preference thing as far as whether you like that stuff. But even I can tell you that I watched the match from Rampage because we didn't have time to watch it when we were in Montreal. I watched it a couple days ago. The basketball shit is just fucking terrible. I feel like all of their skits now on Dynamite and shit are just being the Elite skits, and that's not a compliment. They're just not funny. They're just not entertaining. Kenny does not feel important at all. And I know they are the champions to kind of bring credibility to that division. I just don't care. I feel like they're underutilizing Kenny, and I felt this way before he became world champion too. He's a massive name. I know you're not the biggest fan, but I just feel like he's a big star and can be used in a bigger fashion in WWE. I would like to see him in WWE for the only reason that he would be away from the Bucks, and maybe they sign the Bucks at some point, and that is what it is, I guess. I don't even hate the Bucks. I just feel like Kenny at this point, as he did in Japan, probably does his best work without the Bucks around. To be completely honest, I feel like the best parts of his world title reign were when the Bucks weren't with him. So I think I'd like to see him in WWE for that reason alone, and I think he could have an AJ Styles-esque push where he comes in. WWE fans don't really know him, but he gets over because he's so good. So what would be your thoughts on that? At least getting him away from the Bucks, I feel like could be a positive, personally.
Yeah, I feel like you said, I think that would be a positive. I think the best part of his run when he was away from the Bucks and the silliness. So I think coming in, that would be great if he's by himself. Like you said, he's older. I don't think it would be a long run, but you could do an AJ Styles-esque run and kind of do what they did with AJ when he came in. So I wouldn't be against that. Just no Bucks, please.
And especially with Triple H in charge, I would have faith that they would use him properly. I don't think they would hire Kenny just to bury him, always the AEW guy. I know Cody was in WWE previously. They could have very, very, very easily brought him back and have him be just another mid-card guy in the show. That's what I was fully expecting. I did not expect him to get the push that he has. And headlining WrestleMania for the fucking world title a year later. It's pretty, surreal when you think about it, when you sit back and think about it. I think Omega, not that he's headlining WrestleMania, he could, but I think he could end up in a similar position, to be honest with you, because he is that good and he's still young enough and he's a big enough name where I could see them utilizing him in that meaningful manner. There's a couple other names I mentioned as well. Kota Ibushi's name has been in the news as well. This is worth noting because he said, I think a week or two ago, he would actually entertain the idea of going to WWE if they allowed him to train their talent, which seems like a pretty easy demand. I mean, if they wanted him, I mean, I guess if he could be at the Performance Center, I guess. I don't know exactly what he'd be teaching them based off some of the matches I've seen from him. He's a pretty fucking batshit crazy guy. I think there was that and then maybe something else, but if WWE wanted him, I think they would probably, especially Triple H having worked with him in the Cruiserweight Classic, again, I think it's a possibility. I think he probably will end up in AEW, but what does he do in AEW? Will they book Kota Ibushi as a top name? And there's so many people that AEW has they're not doing jack shit with right now. Kota Ibushi in WWE, I know you really haven't seen a ton of his work, but I know you watched him in the CWC. I think that'd be pretty fucking cool. Especially, I think the big thing with me, I think if you rein these people in creatively, I know there's a lot of complaints, and rightfully so. Oh, this person doesn't have any creative freedom. Some people, to be completely honest with you, should not have complete creative freedom. Cody Rhodes being one of those people. A lot of the shit that we saw him have in AEW, I feel like his handprints were on a lot of that, and it wasn't any good. He has enough freedom in WWE to be as great as he can be without going overboard. Kenny would be the same thing. Kota would be the same thing. I feel like you bring him in, hopefully he can have kick-ass matches. I'm not saying he would have an amazing run. He may not. I don't know. But he's a name that I wouldn't sleep on either. I feel like he'd be a great addition to that roster. And I'm not talking NXT. Fuck that shit. In the current NXT, no thanks. Any of these people in NXT would be a joke. They'd have to go right to the main roster. And I feel like Kota could be one of those guys.
Yeah, personally. I mean, I think out of the three, I think I want to see Jay White in WWE more out of the three of them. I would say White, Omega, then Ibushi. I mean, I don't know. I guess I'm just not familiar enough with them. But like as name recognition alone, I'd rather have White or Omega over him. I mean, I think it'd be good depending on what they do with them. But like, we say the same thing about AEW. Like you bring all these people in, and then what do you do with everyone else? I feel like you can bring a couple big names in, but you just can't bring everyone in. So if I had to pick, I'd be White or Omega over him. I think he's good, but I also want them to bring in all these people just to neglect what they already have.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying they should bring all three in. I'm just saying of the three, I wouldn't mind seeing any of them there. I don't think all three of them end up in WWE. The most likely of all three former New Japan World Champions, the IWGP Heavyweight Champions, is Jay White. I don't know if he's officially a free agent, but the talk a couple of weeks ago was that his contract was winding down. Then he lost to Hikuleo in a loser leaves Japan match, and it's like, okay, he's done in Japan. But then people were saying, he could still end up in New Japan Strong, which is their US-based show. It's like, okay, the fuck is he going to do there? But okay. And then they have a match with him and Eddie Kingston at a show last week in the same night as Chamber, where Mercedes Moné actually became the new IWGP Women's Champion. Between him and Eddie Kingston, where the loser had to leave New Japan. And Eddie Kingston also said, which was interesting, in the build-up to the match. Not that he books this stuff, but I thought it was interesting they included this. He goes, I don't want you working with us in AEW. I don't want you working with any AEW talent if it has to. I mean, AEW uses a lot of New Japan people, so Jay White going to AEW as much sense as that would make, considering he was already there last year for a few appearances. It just, at this point, I don't know why they would put in that stipulation about, you can't work with New Japan talent, if you probably would be if he was in AEW. So, to me, all signs look like he's going to WWE. And if his contract is up at the end of the month, to me, as many other people have said, not a hot take, I think you debut him on the night after WrestleMania. On the post-WrestleMania Raw, in whatever fashion, he does not go to NXT. That's a joke. I don't want to see Jackson White on on NXT, new name, whatever, or Jackson Black, I'm sorry, if we're switching the name up. I think they should keep the name Jay White, hopefully. I wouldn't change it. Or honestly, just call him Switchblade. I feel like that'd be cool too, because that's his nickname anyway, if they have to change it. But either way, I would put him right in the main roster, and he's a guy that I feel like he looks like a star, he wrestles like a star, he talks like a star. He's someone, as we've talked about before, I think could really thrive in WWE, especially if Triple H is still in charge of creative.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're going to debut him, definitely night after WrestleMania. Honestly, I think this is, not that I think this will definitely have, this is more fancy booking, but I feel like you could have, like, Rollins comes out, says he's tired of facing all these one-off people, like he beat Logan Paul, last year faced Cody, like he wants to kind of go towards the WWE title, and you have Jay White come out. And then you have him and Rollins, kind of similar to Cody, doing him and Rollins for the next few months, and then you move on from there. I mean, honestly, you could put Gallows and Anderson with them. Not that I'm their biggest fan, but they're just sitting and catering. So honestly. If you want to do something with them, you can put them with Jay White as well. So I think night after WrestleMania would be ideal, honestly.
Rollins would be cool. I just feel bad for Rollins. He's getting paired with all these
exactly.
with all these new people, and he would probably lose too. Let's be honest, and he shouldn't be losing. So, I think Rollins is so over, and he's that's a great idea and all. I would probably put, if he's cleared by then, AJ in that spot, because at this point they don't give a shit about AJ Styles. I know he's coming off of another Bullet Club feud with Finn Balor, but listen, put him in another one with Jay White. I don't even think Gallows and Anderson are just abysmal. The fact they even re-signed them, and it's comical that AJ's been hurt now for 2 months now, a month and a half, and they haven't been on the show at all, tells you all you need to know about how they feel about Gallows and Anderson. I know it was a pity signing, because we talked about it before. He offered them jobs, and they got fired, and whatever, and they offered him to resign, whatever. So I know they're back for that reason, but they're just not that great at this point, and they're just not interesting. It would be interesting to see them back with Jay White. I don't know. There's a lot of different directions they can go, but Jay White, period, is just a fucking star. I feel like he could do really well. I feel like if he goes to AEW, does he end up in the trios division with Aussie Open or something? I mean, seriously, what do you even do with Jay White in AEW? I feel like he's a natural fit there because there's so many people he could feud with. But we've talked about this a lot. You mentioned this with Jay Lethal before we hit record here. He's one of those guys where I feel like he'd be a big star when he first comes in and would fizzle out quickly because they just wouldn't have anything for him to do because they already have so much talent as it is. That's a good problem to have, but they just have so much talent. I don't think WWE will reach a point like that as well. I don't think WWE has enough top-tier talent to where Jay White would be buried, though.
No, I agree. I think he should go to WWE, AEW. Not that he'd definitely be a miss, but they have so many guys right now they're not using. I think it'd be kind of ludicrous to go there because I just feel like he'd be stuck somewhere that no one would care about him.
Listen, I think it's now or never for him in WWE. I feel like he's young enough. He would do well. They want him. He may not be as hot in 5 or so years, so just go to WWE while you can, my man, and I would like to see him thrive. And there's certain people I would like to see in AEW as well. I feel like they could do better there. Ibushi being one of them. I feel like would probably do better in AEW than WWE. But Jay White, I think, is a WWE guy. If I've ever seen one, I mean, he just screams WWE, and I think he's going to do well there, hopefully, when the day comes. Not saying he absolutely will, but, nothing ever is really guaranteed. But I could see him having an AJ Styles run where he comes in, impresses a lot of people, and is pushed at a top level from the get-go because he's that good.